You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again for our second episode of this brand spanking new trading year of 2023. What mysteries, what wonders, what terrors does this year hold in store for us? I guess we'll all find out together here collectively on the Option Block. That's why we're here. We'll help talk you off the ledge a couple of times a week, give you some info, some education, some analysis, some unusual activity, a dose of nonsense, a little bit of 80s wrestling, all sorts of fun mixed in here on the old OB. Welcome back to all of our longtime listeners, and welcome to the many, many new listeners who joined the show and indeed joined the network over the course of the past year, 2022. Just a banger year by just about every metric we could throw at it out there. Of course, we love all of you folks out there. If you want to keep that partay rolling, all we ask that you do keep rating and reviewing it wherever you get this show on the on-demand side. It clearly does help reach new people these days. And of course, if you want more great content in your lives, and really who doesn't at this point, you know where to go, theoptionsinsider.com/pro, or just for you cool kids listening right now, /secret club. To win fabulous prizes, you of course get access to that exclusive pro podcast feed, which has just a ridiculous amount of great content on there now. You also get to pick the brains, some of the best people in the world of options and derivatives, and also get to enjoy all sorts of fun on Options Oddities. We had a fun one last week. And then, of course, you get live access to this and the giveaways, all sorts of fun we have going on out there. Speaking of giveaways, it's that time, listeners. Let me fire up a little bit of fun, because we can't just do this naked. Requires a little bit of musical accompaniment. All right, listeners, we've been playing this game for a while now. This 80s wrestling guessing game. It has been an epic contest. We've done it for multiple years now. But this year, or really I should say last year, the game took a turn. We ratcheted it up a notch. We turned it up to 11 because there were fabulous prizes in store. I checked out everything that was going on over there. It seems like the collector's world always descends on the big San Diego Comic-Con every year. For whatever reason, this year, 80s wrestling was a huge theme of it. They had two very cool items that caught my eye. One was an exclusive no-holds-barred 2-pack with Zeus and Hulk Hogan. That thing sold out instantly. Unable to get that. But I also had my eye on the return of Sergeant Slaughter himself. But not just any Sergeant Slaughter. Sergeant Slaughter, the way I remember him, the way I know him and love him, a lot of 80s wrestling fans do, in his G.I. Joe incarnation. Yes, G.I. Joe brought him back to the line, scaled him up 6 inches, all sorts of fun accessories, made him part of SDCC Fun. So I managed to snag 2 of those bad boys. One for me, of course, and one for these jabronis here to battle over. Speaking of said jabronis, Let me welcome them both on now. First, let's go out to the sleepy hamlet known as St. Charles, where we are joined once again by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW. Uncle Mike, sir, how was your trip to the Southern Islands, sir? I'm glad you made it back in one piece.
It was good. It was enjoyable. Good to be away from the cold weather for a little bit. And like we were talking a little bit about before the show, didn't have to go to COVID jail this time around. So that was a good thing.
Any trip without COVID jail is a good trip, in my estimation. And also joining us from the Southern volatility mecca, known as Texas, we are joined once again by the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. Mr. Meatball, welcome back to the show. To you as well, sir.
Hey, good to be here. I'm excited about the Bears' #1 overall draft pick and excited about Sergeant Slaughter.
Isn't it funny how a crappy drubbing turned into a celebratory thing within the span of a few minutes? Funny how that works.
The Nathan Peterman era is forgettable, but the future is bright for Justin.
He didn't even play. It was the other guy, too. It was all terrible. Yes, all terrible, but you know what? It all ends up in a first-round tanking of epic extraordinaire. So we'll get to that another day. Now is the day. Before I get to the results, who's feeling lucky? Who thinks they did enough to win the Sarge? Uncle Mike, you feeling lucky? Mr. Meatball, who's feeling lucky?
I really don't know where I stand at this point because, I mean, I got shafted a couple times, but I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of respect for my opponent, Mark. He knows his 80s wrestling. He's very quick-witted with it. So I have to say I'm totally in the dark at this point as to where it's going to go. It wouldn't surprise me if you just all of a sudden award it to Andrew just because you can.
That would be funny. I don't know what he would do with a vintage-era Joe Sarge on his desk. I think he'd be very confused. I'm not sure if he would value it fully. Like, I can see mine right now, and it just warms the cockles of my heart. So it's all sorts of good stuff. I'm looking at the numbers here, Mr. Uncle Mike, and you have a reason to be questioning as to who won because it was an epic battle all the way through, as you recall, listeners. It was neck and neck pretty much the whole way. We started this back, like I said, right after July, or after the big SECC stuff hit. It kind of got me thinking maybe we should do something with one of those prizes. I managed to secure one of them, and then I thought, okay, let's make it the prize for the second half of the year for the 80s wrestling guessing game. So we kicked it off in early August 8th, and that first battle, Uncle Mike took the victory with 1 point. He got the bonus point because the meatball couldn't make that episode. So the Uncle Mike got the bonus point for showing up. So he got 1 point there. Next week, it was a tie, a point to each of them. But then weirdly enough, the generous fellow that he is, I forgot the exact circumstance. I'll have to go back and listen to the episode. Uncle Mike surrendered his point. So it was 1 point for Sebastian. So we had a tie going into that. After 2 weeks, it was tied at 1-1. Then the 29th show, TOSAW took a point again. He's up in the lead. Then the next week, another tie. TOSAW and Sebastian both tie. So after that September 12th show, we are tied 3-2 in the epic battle for Sarge. Then the 19th, Sebastian takes a point, getting the Rockers there. The week after, TOSAW strikes back. He gets a point with Earthquake and the Natural Disasters. The week after that, October 10th show, we had Sebastian getting a point. So now we're tied again, 4-4 again. Coming into the middle of October. Then we mixed it up a little bit in October. We threw one out there for a Halloween era. We threw in the Lost Boys, and Uncle Mike got that, so got a point for him. The week after, Sebastian follows it up again, back and neck with the Heart Foundation, so we're still freaking tied. Halloween itself, Sebastian took it with another Halloween-themed name, this time Undertaker. And then the week after that, TOSAW comes back with Dino Bravo, tied again. Going into November now here. November 14th, TOSAW takes it with Tito Santana. He stole it because Sebastian actually guessed two people. He tried to cheat. He guessed Tito Santana and Coco Beware. You can't do that in this game, so Uncle Mike just guessed Tito Santana, so he won that one. The week after, we started the medley, and it just killed everybody. There were no points on the 28th show. Then the 5th, Sebastian came back barely got a point after he partially got Dino Bravo right, and not wanting to whiff on the medley again. We gave him a point for that one, even though it was kind of weak. Then the last 2 weeks of the game now, so then we're tied again right there, 7-7, coming into pretty much into December, into the final month, into the home stretch. We're still tight. Neck and neck battle. And then our last couple of medleys there going into the end of the year. Remember, we had weird last couple of weeks where the show was off for the holidays and stuff. So we only had a couple of shows in December on Monday. And Sebastian took one with the Rockers and the Bushwhackers. Then he took the week after that with the Heart Foundation and more. As you'll recall, listeners, I tried to make Uncle Mike guess first. The first time we did the medley, and he passed. and he will come to regret that because Sebastian takes Sarge 9 points to 7. Mr. Meatball, congratulations. You are the winner of this legit 80s Sergeant Slaughter G.I. Joe style Sarge, sir. What say you?
Well, in classic 80s wrestling fashion, I'm going to hold it up and wave it in front of Mike and tell him that he can't have it. And, I want it fair and square and that he's just sour graping and that, I'm going to turn heel on him, if you will. And we'll see whether he can, whether the good guy can win it back.
We'll have to come up with a new prize now for 2023. Maybe someone will come out with an awesome exclusive Iron Sheik figure. We could have a battle for his nemesis. I don't know. I don't know what the big thing will be in 2023. We'll have to wait and see. But for now, listeners, the Meatball takes it. Congratulations to him as we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, listeners, as Sarge prepares to take his leave of the studio, the markets are preparing, and they have been really all day, taking a nice little lift to kick off this second trading week here of the new year. S&P up about a full percent. It was up more, starting to give a little bit of that back. We were kissing 39.50, not quite at that level anymore, right around 39.30 or so. Still up about a full percent. The Dow up about 0.4%. So Dow kind of has been lagging all day long, and it is still lagging. NASDAQ, though, still feeling its oats. Still hanging out close to the top of its range today, up nearly 2%. So tech-heavy NASDAQ feeling this love. The rest of the indices also feeling the love, but coming off a little bit off their highs. So, again, a green start to our second trading week of the year. Is that here to stay? Who knows? A lot of people expecting a lot of dire things, at least for the first half of this year. You could be contrarian and say, hey, that's a bullish sign. Or you could be perhaps a believer and say, hey, that means red ahead. We are kicking off earnings season in earnest again. So that'll certainly have more rubber hit the road in terms of how these companies are really faring. A lot of them have been playing the old rope-a-dope. A lot of them have been saying, oh, things are so terrible, trying to beat down expectations so they can pass that lower earnings bar. Will that game work this quarter? Will they manage to rally off pretty bad news? I guess we're all going to find out here. Coming into the start of the show, we had VIX at a little bit shy of 21.5, about 21.40. Puts it down about 1.2 points from where it was on Thursday's show. VVIX still looking light, 75. That's down about 2 points from where it was on Thursday's show, even though it is up slightly. I think we're at about a 73 when we were on vol views on Friday. So it has gotten a little bit back. That number was borderline alarmingly low on vol views on Friday. VXX 1335 down about half a point. UVXY 6.25 down half a point as well. SVIX 15.5 up about 2/3 of a point from where it was this time on Thursday's show. UVIX 510, man, just winning the race to zero right now, down half a point. And VolQ 26.5 down 1 3/4 points. Stay tuned for a lot more VolQ fun coming on vol views this year here on vol views. Should be fun. But as the winner of the much coveted, much heralded, much desired 80s style G.I. Joe Sergeant Slaughter figure, Mr. Meatball, first, what are your plans for it? You're going to display it proudly on a plaque on your wall, on your desk. What are the plans? And then B, let's line up your tape on this green start to the second trading week of the year, sir.
Oh, he is going to be standing right next to He-Man as my two favorite characters, my two favorite toys I ever owned. And they will be proudly displayed on my bookshelf. And probably in package, and it will be because He-Man's still in package.
You're a mint in box man. Interesting.
Okay. Well, with stuff like this, yeah, I'm going to be mint in box and put them proudly on my shelf, and then at some point maybe I'll open them up and have them get in a fight. Should be awesome. But more importantly, let's talk to the markets because, we were looking at boom higher earlier today. Oil was up, and that's really been what turned the market around is that oil was up over $2 at one point today. And the oil names have precipitously turned around. Oil is now up only about $1.30, trading around $75 a barrel. And you alluded to VVIX. Yeah, the cost of VIX and of trading VIX options and where those are is about as cheap as we've been in almost a decade. I was looking back going back a very long time for VIX. And Mark, the last time that we got a VIX that was this consistently low.
It's funny you say that, because I was just thinking about that the other day, and I was like, I don't think we've seen that in the entirety of vol views, which is over a decade. So that would match up with your data.
Getting pretty close. The last time VVIX printed as low as it did, we were still on air. It was May 22nd, 2015.
Oh.
So call it 7.5 years. The last time we were consistently this cheap, all right, we maybe we kind of flirted with it a few times. You're right. You have to go back a decade, back to 2014. 2014. So we're basically talking President Obama for the last time, into the early part of his second term, the first half of his second term, to find VVIX at levels where it was consistently this cheap. So this is a generational opportunity, I think, to trade around vol and trading in VIX options. I'm noticing Apple had a kind of a booming day. The chip stocks are off to the races. A little off the highs, but AMD is up almost 8%. NVIDIA is up 7.5%. Even boring old Intel is up 3.5% right now. So the chip names are driving us higher. On the other end, your medical names, XLVs, look at Merck. It's down 3%. Pfizer down almost 4%. All of the medical names, all the drug stocks are kind of getting face punched. XLV and XLE and XRT. Nope, XRT is positive now. XLE and XBI and XLV. So two drug ETFs and energy are the only names that are down, with the drug names really being the black eye for the market.
Yeah, interesting stuff, listeners. That VVIX, don't sleep on that. That is intriguing stuff. And as the data points just pointed out, it's been quite some time since we've seen levels that low. And if we also know something else, if past is prologue, and again, these markets, we're kind of heading into uncharted territory. So you don't know if past is prologue anymore when it comes to vol. But if it is, we're probably not going to hang out at these vol levels for very long. So an intriguing and interesting, as Meatball put it, a generational opportunity. Be trading around vol. So if you don't pay attention to VVIX, it might be time to start sniffing around those waters. Mr. Uncle Mike just came back from those warm southern waters. Thankfully, he wasn't stuck there longer than his planned duration of stay. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, I know you got a body blow recently just here on the show, so if you need to take some time to recover, I understand. But while you're recovering, sir, what is catching your eye out there in the markets?
It wasn't a body blow. I mean, it was, Mark did beat me fair and square, even though the one day I did get shafted. The rest of it, he did beat me fair and square.
As you'll recall, I tried to, you were leading up until the medley time, and I said, do you want to go first? I offered it to you as the medley person. We all learned medley, it pays to go first. I tried to give it to you. I tried to give it to you. You will come to regret that, sir, unfortunately.
Oh, I have no regrets on that whatsoever. My regrets are that even though you did cheat me, Mark Longo, Sebastian did beat me. The only thing that I have to say is that it's kind of like in a football game. You're saying he beat me by 14 points. I'm saying he only beat me by a field goal. So that's what I'm saying.
Here's what I'm saying, Mike, is I stacked the deck and I cheated. And I'm a bad guy. I'm going heel. I've got a steel chair. And what are you going to do about it? That's right.
You definitely are a heel because you have an Iraqi trader now standing next to He-Man, the most righteous character in all cartoon history. You're putting an Iraqi trader right now.
This is specifically G.I. Joe era, Sarge. So there's no Iraqi trader at this point. Specific era.
He becomes an Iraqi trader, though. He's a traitor. That's all there is to it. He's a traitor. You could have Sergeant Slaughter. He's a traitor.
Wow, strong words from Uncle Mike out there. we'll assuage you with a little bit of market talk, because you always get excited when the markets are green, sir.
That's true. No, Mark beat me fair and square, but I mean, he didn't even have to use the steel chair or have his manager distract the referee and do all those things that he did. He beat me fair and square. I'll give it to him. And he didn't even have to cheat. So, Mark, you need to get some honor, just like 80s WWF wrestling had. It was a sport of honor back at that time.
You're right.
Now you have an Iraqi traitor up next to He-Man, my boyhood hero. That makes me cringe that those two are on the same shelf. But anyway, getting back to the markets, I'm so upset about this. But anyway, so far in the year, we're getting kind of the early year excitement, fresh year, fresh attitude. Everything is green and everything's going to be good. Buy the dip, third year of a presidential term. How can I possibly lose? So that's kind of the attitude of what we're having so far this year. But keep in mind, we're up roughly 1.5% on the year in the S&P. And so, while it is a good start, understand that one good week does not make a year. And so I'll be talking in the strategy block. I'll be talking about a line in the sand that I like to use. I've talked about on the show before, and I'll talk about a little bit more on the strategy block. But have the understanding that just because you're flipping the calendar doesn't necessarily mean things are better. Now, it does mean that you can start from scratch in certain ways. You have New Year's resolutions. You have things like that. But understand, you still have to look at what the fundamentals are. What is the technical analysis? What is the reason that stocks could go up or could go down? There's a lot of things going on right now in that now we have the Baidu CEO. He's now back on the scene after a couple of years. Maybe he was hanging out with Sergeant Slaughter for a couple of years. Who knows, doing some type of international espionage. I don't know. But now he's back on the scene. We have that going on. We had last week a lot of uncertainty about what was going on with who's going to be the House Speaker. Didn't really seem to be much of a market factor, but it was definitely something that it just shows how divided we are as a nation, even within the Republican Party. I think it's just a lot of craziness, which can't be underestimated. But right now, what I'm most impressed with at the beginning of the year that I think is really showing something that is a positive sign so far, and that is the rally in bonds. So far this year, the yields are going down a little bit. Just looking at, IEF as an example. IEF, it tracks the 7 to 10 year treasuries, closed 2022 at 95.78. It is at 98.67 so far this year. And that's a pretty significant move over the course of the week in short-term bonds. And so what that tells me is that a couple of things could be happening right now. Number one, maybe we were oversold a little bit. But number two, we went down in bonds last year, not necessarily on the Fed moving rates, but we went down on the anticipation of the Fed moving rates, which they did. So what I mean by that is a lot of the moves happened before they actually did their interest rate hikes. And so what I think is going to be interesting to watch over the course of the next month is if we have a rally in the IEFs, the TLTs, the LQDs, and to some extent the SHYs. And if we do, I think that's going to be in anticipation of the Fed actually not raising rates anymore. Not necessarily lowering them, but just not raising them. So I think that bonds kind of act like New York people in that they're just so paranoid that they're going to get mugged or whatever, and rightfully so, that they just want to get out anyway, just to be safe. And so in a lot of ways, I think that bonds, people that were in bonds, people kind of overreacted to some extent, I believe. But if the Fed does raise rates more than they say they're going to do, then I could be wrong with this. But if the Fed keeps things stable or says we're just going to raise to, I forget what it was, the 5.4 or whatever it was, and they continue to hold their course, and the Fed powers that think they be continue to say that and do that, then I think we could get a little bit of a rally in bonds. Now, with that being said, last year was kind of unique in that we had a sell-off in bonds and a sell-off in stocks. It's hard to imagine a major rally in bonds right alongside a major rally in stocks. So if we get some buyers in the bonds, are we going to get that traditional inverse relationship back? That remains to be seen. And I think the way with which you need to trade against that or to position yourself against that is to have a good line in the sand, which I will talk about on the strategy block.
Look at you dropping the teases there, radio star that you are here. Let's keep on rolling, see what's taking the starring position out there in the markets today. And you know what? We're actually seeing a fair amount of volume kind of across the board, which is interesting. Usually maybe second week of the year, maybe not the most active, maybe market's still a little thin out there. But no, we're seeing some volume. VIX, 341,000 contracts on the tape. That sounds even more impressive when I tell you the ADV is right around 506,000. So definitely seem like we're on track to hit that today. SPY not sleeping at all, closing in on 6 million contracts right now, 5.86 million. The ADV, 8.16 million. So a lot of action out there in SPY. The S, no rest for the weary out there in S land, 1.7 million contracts on the tape in the S. The ADV, 2.56 million. So let's do a quick check just to see. And of the top 20, most active contracts in SPX today, 0 are non-DTE. There are 0 contracts in the top 20 that are not expiring today. Yet again, people think I'm maybe being hyperbolic when I say it's a sea change in SPX. So look at these numbers. They don't lie. Crazy town. I'm going out to the top 40 now. 1, 2, 3. 3 of the top 40 most active contracts. You're talking some serious volume, listeners. 3 of the top 40 only are not expiring today. Tell me that's not a sea change in that product. I'll tell you, you're a madman or woman. The IWM, 437,000 contracts. So small caps also moving a wee bit today. The ADV, 762. And the Qs always putting up numbers today, 1.86 million. The ADV, 2.7 million out there. Let's get out to the top 10 most actives. And you know what? It's not just indexes that are playing ball today. The single names putting up numbers as well. Cost you 229,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. That is nothing to sneeze at on a random Monday, second trading week of the new year. 229,000, that gets you to our old friend Microsoft. They're popping it again today, up 2.5% or about 5.6 handles. So interesting stuff. It's still net off over the past week, about 12 handles, but they have managed to rebound it from its near-term low of around 213. I'm not sure if it hit that now or if I hit that back. I hit that back, looks like back in November. But the recent sell-off got down to about 222. But still, intriguing stuff. A lot of paper on the tape from Microsoft. Speaking of intriguing, I have no idea why this name is so hot today. Mara. Haven't seen good old Mara in a while. Marathon Digital Holdings, Inc. This was a hot one back in 2021. Listeners, this was many people's surrogate into the crypto space and their equities account. This is before, of course, we had Bitto and other names that you can now put in your securities account. It was also optionable. So it was popular with a lot of you back in the go-go meme days. It has pretty much fallen off our radar. I don't think we've talked about it in our top 10 most actives pretty much since 2021, maybe once. But back in there today, up $1.1 or 27%, trading 520. I see no news as to why this is popping. Last thing I see was that it was downgraded 20 hours ago by Jefferies. But apparently, folks are loving themselves some Mara. Let me just pull it up really quickly if I could see what the most active. It's about 20,000 of the Jan 5s expiring this week are going up. So a lot of action on these now in the money calls. And then, of course, because it's Mara, why not? The June 15s also going up for size, nearly 19,000 of those trading today. So there we go. That's the old meme stock name we know and love. June 15s for 33 cents. My goodness. All right. 2021 is back? Question mark. We shall see. Number 8, Meta, 257,000 contracts on the tape. This one's become a frequent offender here in our top 10 most actives. Today, 131 and about a half, up about $1.50. Far cry from its 52-week low of $88 not too long ago. This thing has just really bounced. The street loved the layoffs out there, also settling some of their longstanding legal issues. Still, a lot of you chose Amazon in our head-to-head, Apple, or I should say Amazon versus Meta. But in the near term, Meta, it's blowing the doors off. Number 7, we got our old friends in the chip zone coming a little bit early today. Good old AMD at number 7, 323,000 contracts. AMD up nearly $5, about $4.90 or 7.6%, trading right around 68.80. So a good cry above their 52-week low of about 54.5 bucks. And again, good for 323,000 contracts today. Let's go out to potentially the soon-to-be dearly departed. We shall see. Bed Bath & Beyond looking pretty robust today, back up 40 cents. Maybe the reports of their demise were greatly exaggerated. Either way, good for 327,000 contracts on the tape today, trading $1.70, up 40 cents right now. The 52-week low just delivered it last week, was $1.27. So nice bounce off that. Listen, have you folks been slinging some Bed Bath & Beyond? I'd be curious. Hit us up. Let us know. Number 5, another sometimes ridiculous B name. This is Baba. 329,000 contracts on the tape for them. 4.25 is what they are trading north today, trading right around 111.60, up nearly 4%. Their 52-week low, get this, listeners, $58, pretty much even. So they have bounced impressively, nearly doubling from their low. That came, looks like in late October, early November was the time frame for that. Looks like actually probably about late October. Yeah, wow. October 24th. So quite the resurgence for Alibaba. Number 4, the other half of the chip zone listeners. We've got good old NVIDIA, 341,000 contracts, trading right around 159.75, up $11. Good grief, 7.5%. That's a far cry as well from the 52-week low of 108. Did they set that? When did they set that? Looks like back in the October timeframe as well. They hit that intraday down to 108 and change. So they have rebounded nicely since October as well. Good today, 341,000. The top 3, you can pretty much guess. Number 3, Amazon, 799,000 contracts, up $3, but still pretty much almost exactly where it was a few months ago when we did that poll, Amazon versus Facebook. And you know where I just said Meta is trading right now. So at least for the near term, Meta winning that face off. Number 3 today, Amazon, $89. Number 2, the fruit company. Market hates it when Apple is green, or I should say when Apple is red. So they turned it green today. $2.50 to the upside, trading 132, about $8 north of their freshly set 52-week low of 124.17. Good today, 799,000 contracts. And the number 1 big dog out there again today, it's Tesla. This name has struggled to find a bit of late. Good for 1.89 million contracts today is Tesla. Get a bit of a lift today, up 9.3 handles or 8.25%, trading 122 and about a half. Their 52-week low, set not too long ago, just a few weeks ago, was 101.81. So they've bounced about 20 odd bucks from that low, listeners. So nice little rebound for Tesla, but over the last 6 months, it's been just a bloodletting, off nearly 50% over the last 6 months, 30 odd percent just in the last month. So they really have been just coming for this name ever since he just whispered the word Twitter. It seems like Tesla has just been in a tailspin. So obviously other factors are at work as well, issues with Chinese production and pricing and everything else. But Twitter hasn't certainly not been helping the stock, but it does translate into options volume, good for 1.89 million contracts. As we keep on rolling, listeners, it is that time to get weird, time to get wild. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we break down some weird paper that's coming across our scanners today. The folks in our chat heaping some praise upon the meatball option god, saying, congrats, Sebastian. Looks like a really cool figure. But then Nichols corrects him and says it's not a figure. It's more than a figure. It's a major award in all caps. And you are correct, Nichols. It is indeed a major award. It kicks to the curb that leg lamp from Christmas Story. This is the most major of awards. So the meatball, we'll see if we can lure him away from dusting off his award shelf behind him and talk about some unusual activity. In particular, a name I think he likes and pays attention to. Maybe his wife does more than him. This is Ralph Lauren, ticker symbol RN. Interesting year for them. Trading, ticker symbol RL listeners, trading 115.75 right now. Off about $0.50 today. On the year, it's almost exactly unched. That's weird. It was 115 and about a half exactly a year ago. It's 115 and 3/4 right now. So pretty much unched on the year, which is fascinating. After the beginning of last year, this thing rallied. One of the few names to really rally into the announcement of that invasion back in February. Hit its apex for the year of 136 on February 25th. And then took the news after that kind of hard. They sold it off to 101 on March 8th. Then it rebounded again up to 122 on March 29th. Then it began a long, slow, dark period that sold off all the way down to the low for the year of 82 1/4. That was on September 26th. Ever since then, it's been struggling to rally again. They got it up to 115.5. Again, this is like the magic level for this name, listeners. But on December 2nd, and then they crushed it again. They came right back for it. They crushed it back down to 101 again on December 20th. And ever since December 20th, they've been rallying it again back up to where it is right now, 115 and about a half again. This is just the magic level. And it seems like Mr. Meatball, I guess someone thinks past is going to be prologue here. They're expecting this thing to get crushed again. This time, a little bit farther down, back down to pretty much its 52-week low, or pretty close to it, because someone this morning scooped 15,000 of the Feb 90 puts. They lifted the offer. They paid 65 cents for these, so they weren't playing around. That was a 55 vol. The stock at the time a little bit higher, 116.02 is where it was, and these went up. There are earnings in February, on February 2nd, so this is going to hedge you through that earnings event. Worth noting, listeners, this is a crazy day out there in Ralph Lauren. There is a lot of activity afoot. This is the name that only trades about 1,000 contracts a day, but it's put up over 20,000 by the time, well over 20,000 by the time we talked about it, including 15,000 just in that block. An hour later, another block of 10,000. This time with the Feb 65 calls went up. Paper crushing those. So maybe someone leg into a collar, but then again, they were about an hour apart. So you hate to assume those kind of things. Also saw someone dumping the AUG 8s for 38 cents, 8,000 times. So you're talking quite a bit of paper, 33,000 contracts just in those alone. So you're already talking 33x the ADV. And we're just getting started. So a lot of paper out there in Ralph Lauren. Mr. Meatball, I'm sure this came across your big money flow scanners as well. What are your thoughts on this put palooza and the options palooza today in Ralph Lauren, sir?
Yeah, I saw these, and since then, another 2,300 have traded. They're already up nicely on this. This thing has gotten weaker as the day has progressed. I'm really interested to see how this one plays out. But they are playing a major fade in Ralph Lauren around their earnings, thinking things could potentially be bad for them.
Yeah, this is a lot of paper for this name, listeners. And it all does seem, except for the August, obviously, a lot of it does seem to be geared around not looking too bueno on the announcement on February 2nd. What do you folks think? You've been playing in Ralph Lauren. Kind of been hard to do. Not the most liquid of names, but today maybe bucking that trend a little bit out there. We'll keep an eye on this one. See how these play out coming out of that February earnings announcement out here. Intriguing stuff, but they're literally unched on the year. You don't see many names hanging out at those levels right now. Let's expand our purview here, listeners, to include a newcomer here to the odd block. Talk about a lot of energy names domestically. A lot of times we go over to Brazil to talk about some of those as well. But now let's flip the script. Let's go over to France, talk about some energy names over there, in particular, Total Energies SE. Ticker symbol TTE, French multinational integrated energy and petroleum company. Founded nearly 100 years ago, 1924. Got quite the storied history behind it here. Trading 62.15 right now, listeners, up about 30-odd cents on the day. On the year, you probably know the trajectory it took, very much tracking the price of oil. It shot up. It was at $53 a year ago, so it's up net about $9 on the year. It shot up going into the invasion, $60. Then they took it down a bit by April 25th. It was back down to $47.60. Then it shot up again, kind of keeping in line with the action we're seeing out there in crude prices. Hit up to $61.15 on our favorite day, listeners, June 8th, yet another day topping out there, another name I should say topping out there. Then it sold off again to $46 on July 14th. I tried to rally it in August to $54. Then it sold off again to $44 on September 23rd. That was also the low for the year, $44.61. Ever since September 23rd, listeners, this name has been on the rampage, rallying all the way up to about almost $64 last week and settling out right now at $62.15. And Mr. Meatball, looks like somebody is deciding to take advantage of this recent protracted upside run here in TTE to take home a little bit of the old risk premium. They're dumping 10,000 of the Feb 65, so about $3 out of the money calls, listeners. I sold those for $1.35, so that's not nothing. Even at this, fairly low vol level of 26, that still worked out to about $1.35 for them. That's a fair amount of juice. The stock was actually a little higher, 62 and about 2/3 when this trade went up, so they're already looking good on the stock side. Again, there are earnings within this cycle, so all bets are off until February 8th when this announcement happens. So we'll see how these calls perform after that. But intriguing stuff. Mr. Meatball, someone taking advantage of this run-up to harvest a little bit of the old upside risk premium in everyone's favorite French energy conglomerate.
Yeah, my guess is that this is a long stockholder that saw the run-up, doesn't want to sell out of the stock, but wants to take advantage of the stock, that the stock is so high. So what do? They sell the Feb 65 calls at $1.35 and take in a nice chunk of dollars off of that low. So that's kind of what this appears to be.
Does have a whiff of that about it. Let's see if we can keep the Feb love alive. Yes, we are 3 for 3. It is a trifecta of Feb options activity today here in the odd block. Going out to a fairly frequent offender. I haven't talked about this one in a little bit, though. This is KB Home, ticker symbol KBH, trading $34.50, kind of unched today. On the year, a little bit of a different story. All these names, the REITs and anything very much real estate and home related, there was a lot of dire concern about them as in this rising rate environment. Obviously, we talked almost endlessly about people buying puts on REITs throughout the entirety of last year. It was probably one of the largest trades by just theme last year. Most of them didn't really work out that well, which is kind of interesting. KB Home's following, it looks like a little bit of a similar trajectory here. A year ago, it was trading $41, so they're down about $6.50 net on the year. Then it shot up almost immediately after that, hit their high for the year, about $50 exactly on January 14th. And then they started coming for it. They beat it up all the way down to 24 and 3/4 pretty much. That was their low for the year on June 21st. Then they tried to rally it a few times, got up to $33.50 in August. Then that rally faded. By September, they were back down to $25.50. Then they've been rallying it again ever since, back up to where it is right now, $34.50. So almost exactly $10 off of its 52-week low that it set back in July. And it tested almost again back in September. So a nice little rally here for KB Homes. And it seems like, Mr. Meatball, somebody ain't feeling this rally, sir, because they came in this morning and bought 5,000 of the Feb 32 puts. They paid 99 cents for these bad boys, so pretty much lifting the offer on these. That is a 47 volatility. The stock was 30 cents higher, 34.82 when they bought these, so looking good on the stock already. And like our other names, this also has earnings built in, but they don't have to wait too long. The earnings are coming up in a couple of days on the 11th, so we'll know pretty soon if these puts are working out. Mr. Meatball, what do you think about yet another customer fading something related to the home market here, sir?
It doesn't surprise me. Interest rates are really high. The home market, it is soft, and I've been surprised that we've seen such strength. KBH is in that kind of mid-market, not quite starter home, but certainly not high end. I think they're in a potentially vulnerable spot. So I'm not surprised they're coming in and scooping up puts here. It kind of makes some sense to me.
I'm not surprised, and Uncle Mike has some strategy for us. So let's get to it.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the Strategy Block.
All right, everybody, strap in for the first strategy block of the new year. Uncle Mike going to spend the remaining time we have here on the show, listeners, regaling you with the necessity of when you are about to play an 80s wrestling medley game, you need to go first. Right, Uncle Mike? Is that your strategy block for today?
It is not. You just need to have an honest referee, but that's another story. You remind me of Dangerous Danny Davis from WrestleMania 3. He was banned for life plus 10 years because of his corruption as a referee. So that's who Mark Longo is. He's like dangerous Danny Davis of 1987.
If corruption is trying to hand you the victory, then I suppose I am guilty.
Hey, I mean, it's back in the 80s, they didn't put up with that stuff. That's why not only did they ban him for life, they banned him for life plus 10 years. Dangerous Danny Davis. Look him up. Anyway, what I want to talk about today is that you can hedge yourself 8 ways from Sunday. You can do this, that, or the other. But ultimately, a tool, and I do all those things, don't get me wrong, but ultimately a tool that I think is very valuable is a way with which you can have a line in the sand. And so you can have a line in the sand for short puts. You can have a line in the sand for spreads. You can do a line in the sand pretty much anywhere. But like I've talked about in past strategy blocks, like Bugs Bunny and Yosemite Sam, you don't want to step across this line. And so from there, what I want to go through is what is my line in the sand right now? Well, for buy and hold strategies, it's nothing because buy and hold means buy and hold, and I'm holding. So that's one thing. For hedge strategies, there is no line in the sand because they're hedged. And whether I'm hedging with a put spread, that means that perhaps I like it at a certain level, but if it were to go past the put spread, I'd love it. And because I love it so much, I'll just take the profit on the put spread and turn it into a buy and hold or adjust the put spread, whatever the case may be, whatever I decide to do in that situation. But what I want to talk about right now is just kind of like a pure line in the sand. And I've talked about this before on the show, and I just want to go through what I'm looking at as I'm preparing for the year right now. And I look at the close of 2022. Close of 2022 is 38.39. This is for the aggressive strategy. So for those of you who are in my buy and hold stuff or for my hedge stuff, this does not apply to you, but this is for the aggressive strategy. We closed the year at 38.39.5. And so what I am looking at is that so long as we're above that number, I can do whatever I want, so to speak, within the aggressive strategy. I don't just lick my thumb and put it up in the wind and say, I'm going to buy a call spread today. I don't do that. There's a lot more to it than that. But I have the freedom to be as aggressive as I want to be based within my own personal rules when that's the case. And the reason with which I do that is because when it's below, in this case, now the new number is set for me at 38.39.5. When it's below that, that means it's a weak market to me. It means that if the market can't be higher on the year, then it's a weak market. And I don't want to be a part of that market if that's the case. And so that's kind of my line in the sand. Now, does that mean I don't trade when it's down? No, of course I'll still trade. I usually trade probably more frequently, but just with less risk is what a lot of times it comes out to. But I really pull in the horns in terms of delta exposure when we are below that. I've told the story on the show a bunch of times in the past, and that when I first started this strategy in 2008, I just was starting the strategy off. I put in the bond strategy the first day of trading in 2008. And then I'm like, you know what? We're down on the day to day. I'm just going to make sure that we're ahead on the year before I even do anything. Of course, 2008, we never went ahead on the year. And so it benefited me a lot and really opened my eyes to the power of being in cash when you need to be in cash, or limiting your risk when you really need to limit risk. So what I would really encourage you to do is that it's very difficult to have an exact stop loss in the option world, meaning when my option gets to this price, I want out. Or if I sell a covered call or I sell a short put, when I get to this exact price, I want out. It's hard to do that. You can't really just set stop losses like you would in a stock or a futures contract, because in stocks and futures, there's one factor for pricing, the price of the underlying, whereas in options, there's 6 factors. So it's difficult to do that. Now, it's possible, don't get me wrong, but it can become difficult to do. Now, some people can you can also set up your risk management by the size of your position. If you buy some little call option, well, you don't care if it goes out worthless because it's such a small position. But if you want to have a line in the sand, that can be beneficial to you, to where if you want to sell a put, but you know that if it goes below a certain level, well, hey, that's the point that I'm wrong. I'm going to get out of it. I might be a little bit worse off. I might be a little bit better off because of time decay, let's say. Who knows? You can have that. Whenever the stock goes below this level, that's when I'm getting out. And that's a line in the sand. So with that being said, if you are looking to manage risk and not be hedged, a line in the sand is something that can be very beneficial, but you really want to stay disciplined about it. Because if you don't, you could end up like Yosemite Sam did after Bugs Bunny dared him to step across that line. And that is the first strategy block for the new year.
All right, listeners, and now it is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
Got me down a rabbit hole here, Mr. Uncle Mike, of looking up this dangerous Danny Davis. I was not familiar with him, but he had some interesting runs here. He was back in the President Jack Tunney days at WWF. That's how far back he goes. Intriguing stuff. Some interesting skullduggery here. I'm sure his music is very difficult to spot. That might be a good one for our upcoming medleys. We'll see what should we do to mix up the game again this year. Listen, we did the medleys last year. Seemed like these two kind of struggled with the medleys a little bit. We'll see. Maybe we'll find another way to mix things up. Speaking of mixing things up, you only got a few hours left to mix it up on our question of the week from the second half of last week. We kicked it off with our VIX questions. We kind of did 2 last week. So this is kind of our second half of last week's question. Finishing up today, you got a couple of hours left on this one. So probably, podcast folks, you probably won't have time to vote out here. But right now we're asking you, it's our annual sentiment poll. If you had to buy a 10% out of the money call expiring at the end of the year on one of the following products/segments, which one would you choose? Gave you S&P 500, so SPY, SPX, pick your poison, or Bitcoin, or WTI, so crude oil, or the VIX itself. Mr. Meatball, what is your vote, and what do you think our audience is voting for, sir?
They're voting. My vote would be crude, and I think the audience is thinking crude. I think they're going crude.
Interesting. We have a bunch of crude people in our audience. Interesting.
They're not crude at all. They're gentlemanly and polite.
I'm not putting words in your mouth. Oil. I'm just saying what you're saying out here. I'm just repeating your words for the masses out there. No ill intent whatsoever. I'm no heel. And then Mr. Uncle Mike. Speaking of heels, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are you voting for? What do you think our audience is voting for?
Well, I think Mark made a couple of crude assumptions on all this, but couldn't resist that one. I'm going with SPY. SPY and SPY, baby.
SPY and SPY. And the heel Uncle Mike takes it. 42.9% of the audience choosing SPY or SPX right now. We have a tie for number 2, weirdly enough, exactly 25% each for a WTI and VIX. So a little bit of a battle right now between crude oil and VIX. We'll see who takes the number 2 spot when this actually rolls to a close in a few hours. Bitcoin, no love for Bitcoin, only 7.1%. Bringing up the rear out there. Let's go around the horn, see what everyone's keeping an eye on until our next episode on Thursday. Mr. Meatball, we will start with you, sir. What is on your radar until the Thursday episode?
I mean, CPI on Thursday morning is going to be a big deal. I believe Powell is speaking this week as well, which could move things around. And I'm watching today. Because markets have really, really given away a lot while we've been talking. We were up almost 50 at the top of the show. We're now only up 20. And if we close back below 3,900, that could mean we're just still stuck in our range-bound territory that we've been stuck in for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, we were hanging out, it seemed like, for a long time, right around that 38.5 to 3,800 level. Have broken above it now today, but maybe we're trending back down. We shall see. If the momentum keeps carrying us back lower. Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you. What are you keeping an eye on until the Thursday show, sir?
Well, I'm watching bond yields as well. I think it's going to be, like Mark said, if we have Powell speaking, there's going to be some movement there most likely. So I think that's going to be a big thing to watch. And then I'm going to watch Bitcoin go down this week.
Speaking of Bitcoin, that music means we come to the end here for the old OB. But fear not, listeners. If you're one of our many pro folks, you can, of course, tune in for the Crypto Rundown. Our first Crypto Rundown of the new year coming up in a little over an hour out here. I'll be joined by Christoph Gugelman, founder and CEO, I should say, of Trade Tech out there. So that should be fascinating. Our first Crypto Rundown, checking on those markets. First guest for the new year. Always fun to pick the brains of people out there in the world of crypto. I have to get Uncle Mike on that show one of these days. I'm sure he will be a much beloved guest. So stay tuned for that. All you on-demand listeners have to wait a little bit. When that hits the network on demand, you'll be able to check it out as well. Speaking of Uncle Mike, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, while you are drowning away your sorrows over losing last year's 80s wrestling guessing game, if folks want to reach out to you to commiserate, where should they go? What should they do?
Follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW. Check out my website, stcharleswealth.com, if you want to talk about Iraqi trader Sergeant Slaughter, as well as any investment thoughts, tips, or ideas for 2023. Reach out to me. I would love to hear from you.
Our pro listeners are calling you out, Mr. Uncle Mike. Option God says, TOSAW, don't be bitter. Sure, there is another award that you can win. Maybe this year. Sure, he can maybe win this year's award. We have a whole new contest for him this year. Option God. So there you go. He can try his hand. Maybe this year he wins the medley. And the winner of our major award this week, Mr. Meatball, sir, while you're basking in your glorious victory, if folks want to reach out to you to offer their celebratory congratulations, where should they go? What should they do?
Reach out to optionpit.com and read my blog that I write every day. It's called The Bix Edge, and it will tell you all kinds of insightful stuff about volatility and what I'm seeing. Mark, I may have a good prize that we can put out. I'll tweet them at you, and you can tell me what you think.
I look forward to it. I am
perfect, and might even get TOSAW motivated.
You're saying Sarge wasn't enough?
By victory, not prize.
G.I. Joe vintage era Sarge wasn't enough. We shall see. Oh, I'm curious. Now I'm intrigued by what your prize might be. Maybe listeners, you have a fun prize you think would be good. Hit us up. Let us know. Give us your suggestions for what we can dangle in front of these two competitors, these two gladiators for next year's contest. That will do it for this year's contest. We'll be back, of course, on Thursday with the next episode of the show. Back next Monday with our first foray, our first skirmish in the ongoing battle that is the 80s wrestling guessing game. How will we mix it up for this year? We shall see. Stay tuned. Stay safe. We'll see you back in a little bit for the crypto rundown, then back again on Thursday, another episode of the Option Block.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.